What's the most inaccurate thing your child has ever been taught in school? That was the question a father asked online, and one answer shocked millions. It started when my 10-year-old son came home unusually quiet. Normally, he'd burst through the front door talking non-stop, but that day he just sat silently at the kitchen table. When I asked what was wrong, he looked at me and said, "Dad, my teacher said some people are just born poor because they don't work hard enough." At first I thought he misunderstood, so I asked him to explain. Apparently during class, a student asked why some families struggle financially, and the teacher replied, "Poor people are usually poor because they make bad choices and don't try hard enough." Then she showed the class a chart about successful habits and explained how rich people wake up earlier, work harder, and make smarter decisions. But what hit me hardest was my son's best friend Liam. His single mother works 2 jobs and barely sleeps just to keep food on the table. My son looked at me and quietly asked, "Does that mean Liam's mom is lazy?" That question destroyed me because kids trust teachers completely. The next morning I scheduled a meeting with the school expecting an apology, but instead the teacher doubled down. She said she was encouraging ambition and teaching children accountability. I asked her directly if she believed struggling families just weren't accountable enough, and she simply shrugged. Then the principal walked in and revealed multiple parents had already complained about similar comments from the same teacher. One child cried after being told successful people don't make excuses, and another became ashamed of their family using food assistance. But then came the moment nobody expected. My son, who had been quietly coloring in the corner, suddenly looked up and asked, "If poor people are lazy, then why does my dad work more than anyone I know?" The room went silent. My wife had passed away 3 years earlier, and since then I'd been raising him alone while working 2 jobs. The teacher didn't know that, but my son did. Then he pulled a folded assignment from his backpack. The teacher had asked the students to write what makes someone successful. Most kids wrote about money, houses, or fancy cars, but my son wrote one sentence. Someone is successful if they make people feel safe when life gets hard. The principal read it aloud, and suddenly nobody could speak. Not me, not the teacher, nobody. Because a 10-year-old child had just understood something adults spend their whole lives missing. Success isn't money, it isn't waking up at 5 a.m., and it definitely isn't proof someone else failed. Sometimes the hardest working people are the ones barely surviving. The exhausted parents, the families hiding struggles behind smiles, the people sacrificing everything just to keep going. A week later, the teacher was removed from the class pending review. But that's not the part I remember most. What I remember is driving home afterward when my son quietly asked from the back seat, "Dad, are we poor?" And I told him, maybe financially sometimes, but not in the ways that actually matter. So now I want to ask you, what's the most inaccurate thing you were ever taught in school?